Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you happen to be. This is your weekly update, and I'm going to make sure that I can give you as much context and information as possible about the forthcoming assignments in the course. Starting from the third module and moving into the fourth and the fifth modules, you're going to have increasingly difficult assignments, and they're going to build on everything else that came before. So purpose and audience is going to be a part of all the writing you're going to do. You're going to be looking at rhetorical modes. We're going to be emphasizing rhetorical modes as part of your final capstone project. You're going to see that in some of the template that's being used for the final capstone project and your research associated with that. So again, we have a recursive building here where each floor, each segment, each module continues to build on what came before. All of that's going to lead into English 112 or English 114 if you decide to take that. All of this information is also applicable when you go to other classes. To get started, I want to, again, give you as much context as possible, and I'm going to give you the context through a really great example, okay? I didn't like what he had to say, and I thought it was really dumb. What? Right? That's exactly the reaction that your reader is going to have if you say something like that in your paper. Who is he? What did he say? How am I supposed to know who he is and what he said? Because if you assume shared content with the reader's already lost. Okay, you can't assume that the reader is going to be me. You have to assume that the reader is going to be a general readership, a general audience. So as you go through and you begin to critique the thing that you're working on, the paper that you're working on right now, don't assume that I am the person that's reading it. The best advice I can always give is just assume that your instructor has died. That's really morbid advice, but assume that your instructor has died and that you're writing to a brand new instructor who has no idea what the assignment is. By the way, I give that advice because I had specifically that experience when I went through college. I was taking a class, my instructor passed away about 3 or 4 weeks into the class. The new instructors had no idea what was going on. They had to play catch up, and that's always stuck with me. So same thing here. So if you say to me again, I didn't like what he said, and I disagree with it, I have no idea what that means. None. I'm going to pretend like I'm that instructor. I have no idea what in the world you're talking about. If you say, I didn't like what Aristotle said, and I disagree with it, at least we're moving in the right direction. Now I know who said it. I have no idea what Aristotle said because Aristotle wrote an awful lot of stuff in his life. If you have ever seen the collected works, it's pretty big. If you said, I don't like what Aristotle said about women, now we're getting closer. I don't like that Aristotle said that women are mistakes and that men are the primary individuals. Whoa, okay, now we're onto something. I don't like that either. So tell me more. And that's what this video is going to be about. That's why I've spent so much time sort of looking at me. These are the examples of quotes that I give to my classes, my seated classes, right? So what Aristotle actually said in Politics is the male, unless constituted in some respect contrary to nature, is by nature more expert at leading than the female, and the elder and complete than the younger and incomplete. The relation of male to female is by nature a relation of superior to inferior and ruler to ruled. We're saying the same thing, I'm just increasing it as we go. I didn't like what he said, and I disagree with it. No idea what you're talking about. I didn't like what Aristotle said. Okay. Didn't like that Aristotle said this, and I paraphrased it. Now I'm giving you the specific quote. And again, your audience is like, whoa, I don't like that either. I think the men and women are supposed to be equal. And because they're supposed to be equal, yes, I completely disagree with that. I want you to carry it one step further, though, because here's the thing. Some of you may say, oh, yeah, Aristotle, I've heard of that guy. Some of you may say, I've never heard of this guy before. I couldn't pick him out of a crowd. And then others of you might say, oh, Aristotle, yes, of course. This was the guy that taught Alexander the Great. And was an incredible botanist and one of the first scientists on the entire planet in Western civilization. Those are 3 very different things, right? If you say Aristotle, who was otherwise a brilliant man and who wrote an awful lot of early scientific text and helped to subdivide all of human knowledge into different categories, unfortunately said, this particular thing about males and females, that males are by nature superior to females who are inferior. Now everybody's on the same page. They know who he is, they know where he came from, they know what he did, and they know already, sort of implicitly because of some of the word choices that are being used, how you feel about this particular quote. I picked this quote to use in the classroom because people have very strong reactions to it. And then I have, some quotes to the contrary down here. That's really, though, what 3.1 is all about. And that's what your 3.2 essay is all about. And that's what your final capstone is all about as well. Who said it? What are their qualifications? You need to tell me because I don't know who this person is, or I may not know who this person is. What did they say? Give me a direct quote. And by the way, when you give a direct quote, do not do what the news media does. The news media changes quotes all the time to be able to suit their purposes. They'll, cut this part out, cut that part out. I hate to use this as an example, but it's in the news recently. Donald Trump used a campaign advertisement where he misquoted Dr. Fauci, and Dr. Fauci was not very happy about that because that's unfair. You can't do, again, what the news does. Politicians do it. I picked this example because it's a pretty popular one right now. It could be on the other side as well. But again, you have to concentrate on what was actually said. You can't manipulate it. You can't change it. Right? Even if you think Aristotle is just the greatest guy in the world, and that maybe this was just one really stupid thing that he said one time, which it was a very stupid thing to say. From where we are today, we understand that this is not true at all. You can't change it, right? You have to use it. And you have to confront it as it is. That is my advice. I don't want to make it any more complicated than that, and I don't want to drag this out, but that's my advice. Rather than being here, right where I started, I don't like what he said, I disagree with it, no idea what that means. By the end of it, we've layered enough stuff onto this that anybody could understand it. And then you can start to build around that. That's what 3.1 is about. That's what all of 3.2 is about. That's what Module 4 and Module 5 are about as well. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up with one more thing. By the time that you see this video, you're going to have access to the 4th and the 5th modules. Go ahead and start looking through the 4th and 5th modules. You will have access to 4.0 and 5.0. 4.0 has a little bit more advice on how to quote and how to use quotes, but then you start getting into documenting your capstone research, documenting it with MLA format and abstract and annotated bibliography, and using also a template that's provided in there, and then your final capstone as well. Where you should start, really where I would advise to start, is by looking at the final capstone, because everything else ties into that final capstone. Your final capstone project will be a research-based topic of your choice, and it will be an argument of some sort. So look at the basic assignment description as you've been doing all semester. There's a lot of stuff here, but that's because, again, it's recursive. It keeps building, right? So you'll see some things that are built upon here, but it needs to be 4 full pages. It's the capstone. It's worth a good chunk of your grade. Off the top of my head, I think it's 30% of your total grade. And there's, again, a lot of information here. Make sure you look at the rubric. That's the biggest rubric in the entire class, but at least it gets you started and you can start thinking about it now. Okay? You have questions, let me know. Otherwise, we're past the midpoint. We're moving on toward the end of the semester, and see you next week.